The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies and by the generous donations of you, the listener. Thank you to everyone once again for your support. We really appreciate it. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 254. The Lord of the Rings, the card game. With hosts Neil Shuck, Mike Hobbs, and guest presenter Josh Langley-Shuck. This show was recorded on the 17th of October, 2018. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. 'Tis I, the Brummy Dwarf, otherwise known as Neil Shuck. Hello and welcome to the show. On this show, once again, I am joined by my fellow adventurer. It is, of course, the Welsh wizard himself. It's Mr. Michael Hobbs. Hello, sir.
Hello, Neil. And hello to all of Meeps. How's everybody?
Oh, well, thank you. How you doing? You all right?
I'm okay.
And for our guest presenter on this show, we are joined by the one and the only, it's the Cheeky Samurai. So yes, folks, it is time to feature Shuck Squared on the show. It is my son, Josh Langley-Shuck. Hello, Josh.
Hello. You alright?
Yeah. How are you, Josh?
I'm not too shabby, thank you. Just might have to talk to you later about all these little nicknames we have, apparently.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'll fill you in.
Right. Okay. Well, before we go any further, the first thing I think we need to do is to catch up a little bit with what's been going on with you, Josh, because for a lot of people, and several people have been have asked in the past, because a lot of people last time they heard about you were going down south to work for Spartan.
Oh, yeah. Blooming that was ages ago.
Yeah, so are you still working for Spartan Games?
I am not working for Spartan Games anymore. I am now back in Leicester. I am working for a new company as a business admin. I'm working for a business called Allergic Care Alarms. We sell, we produce and sell medical equipment for people with epilepsy and other kinds of things to people all over Britain and other places.
They got you trained with the sales patrol.
Yeah. I've only been there a couple of months and they've already given me tons of responsibilities, including sales, so you know.
Cool. So that's working okay then?
Yeah, it's going great.
So you just to confirm, you actually left Spartan before Spartan ceased trading, didn't you? Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yes. So in the end, Josh wasn't caught up in being made redundant. He'd already left the company by that point. But yes, so he's been back home for a year. So whilst he hasn't been working for Spartan, on the good side, it does mean that we still get to play games together every Friday night. Almost Friday night, which is, a good or a bad thing depending on your view.
Well, we've been very consistent so far. We've only missed the one, haven't we? And that was because we were going somewhere.
Yeah, it's been pretty much. Okay, so that's what Josh has been up to. So he's back in doing other stuff. Thank you to everybody who has been asking after Josh, asking if he's okay and what the follow-up's been, especially when people knew that Spartan had closed and what have you. So thank you all for your concerns. Appreciate that. On this evening's show, we are going to be doing all the usual chats. We're going to be chatting about what we've been getting up to, confessing what we've been buying, chatting a little bit about the Meeples Challenge, and on the main part of the show, we will be covering the Lord of the Rings. However, we will not be covering the Lord of the Rings miniatures game, which has just come out. I no doubt that will be on a show in the non-too-distant in the future. But today is not that show. Today we will be talking about Lord of the Rings, the card game, and both the physical and the newly launched interactive version. So that's going to be coming up in the main part of the show. But first, Mr. Hobbs would like to raise something.
Yes, sad news this week with the very untimely death of Greg Stafford. Greg was a games designer. He was the man who designed Glorantha. He was involved in the first editions of RuneQuest, although he didn't write it, but he was heavily involved in it. In Hero Quest, he put together Pendragon, which was a really great role-playing game, and loads of stuff. I mean, he was the father of Glorantha. He wrote it, and now that RuneQuest has come back, he got back involved with KCM, which is the company he founded back in the 70s, I think. He got that back, and Pendragon and RuneQuest has just had a real renaissance recently with the 7th edition coming out, and it's just really sad. I mean, he was only 70. And so, yeah, a big loss to the gaming community. And I think he was one of the most respected game designers out there. And there's some people have said that, people talk about innovation in games design, but whenever you look at any sort of form of innovation, especially with role-playing games, Greg Stafford had probably done it about 20 years ago. So, really, really sad.
Indeed, yes. One of those guys who could definitely be said has had an impact on a untold number of gamers' lives. So, sad news indeed. Okay, so on that note, what we'll do, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, it's time to approach the confessional once again.
From the makers of Chain of Command comes a tale of drama.
Mon capitaine, les Anglais, they're on the bridge. Ah, so it seems we shall meet again, Captain Fondler.
A tale of action.
That's it, lads. Give them another volley, they're falling back. Remember, 3 rounds a minute.
A tale of romance.
But Mr. Fondler, you are so
prominent for large skirmishes in the era of black powder, where the story ends, sharp practice begins.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here out of sight of the great Guru.
All hail him.
Although rumour has it, someone's let him out the cell. Live, he's been seen live on Twitter.
He has, yeah. Worrying news.
Indeed. So beware. Was it? Yes. Watch out! There's a great Guru about.
Yes.
Which will resonate with people of a certain age. But there we go. Anyway, yes, it is time once again for us to confess what we've been, our unrighteousness in what we've been buying. Shall I go first?
Yeah, go on then.
Well, actually, I've been really good. Okay, right. First off, I had another Kickstarter turn up. Actually, I had 2. One of which we'll talk about again on the next section, but the Great War French expansion finally turned up. I understand you, Mr. Hobbs, you had that a few weeks ago, hadn't you?
Yeah, it turned up a few weeks ago.
Yes, as turned up last week and the main reason for the difference is because I ordered the tanks, because I also had the tank expansion, and there was a problem with the production of the tanks. But yeah, mine finally turned up. Look, very nice it looks too. Very nice it looks too. So looking forward to getting that out, and obviously I also got the brand new figures for the Germans and Brits. So
you got those as well, did you?
Yeah, I got those as well. Yeah. So yes, they're a bit more. What's the phrase? Well, they're much more like the figures that you might find in something more like I don't know, first edition battle or maybe or well, it's the same soft plastic as the French army. I just decided that. Well, it was the OCD kicking in. to have everything in the same material. That was what the problem was. But that is about it. I've been buying just a couple more bits and pieces for modelling. Nothing major, just like some balsa wood and a few bits and pieces ready for the project. When I finally get to do that, but that is about it. I have been remarkably good in the last couple of weeks.
Ooh, got me to go.
Go on then. No. Actually, what we'll do, we'll have Josh.
We'll have Josh. Go on,
Josh. Okay, so what have you been buying, hobby wise?
Right. What have I been buying hobby wise?
Last couple of weeks. What have you been up to?
Well, hobby-wise, I've been buying cards for my Yu-Gi-Oh deck. I've been looking at.
Is Yu-Gi-Oh still a thing then?
Oh hell yeah!
Oh, it's huge, Neil. Get with the kids.
Yeah, it's just funny. It's funny because Konami still claim that it's still a children's card game.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many rules and stuff to it now. It's not entirely sure that you could explain it to a child and then get them to understand what it means. But because I've recently got back into it because I've got a group of friends who now play it, and basically they've changed the entire format of how it's played due to the new systems they've incorporated.
Right.
The board's a bit smaller, and they've done an extremely clever little move where they've made the new system requires these new cards that they've just brought out, so you can't actually play the game how it used to be without these new cards. So you have to get these new cards to then play the game how you used to. And it's
that's called marketing.
Yeah,
and to be fair, it's a typical collectible card game move, isn't it?
Yeah.
Keep everybody interested by, I know, we'll just completely reinvent the system. So you have to buy it all over again. Is that right?
Sort of, yeah. But, I looked out and picked and got a new structure deck, which means I can win without having to use all these new things. And so I've just made myself a new deck, which means that I can win without having to spend loads of money on these new cards. Although I have done anyway, because it just adds to my power, adds to how useful I can use it. It's sort of like those are extra cards that are there just if I need them, just in case.
Right.
But
okay. And at this point, whilst the gamer I'm interested, as a parent, I really don't want to know how much you spend.
Got his own money now, Neil. He's got a job.
Yeah.
I only spent £30 on, was it, an entire extra deck.
How many cards is that in total then?
30.
And this, dear listener, is Neil being a dad.
No, it's not. It's me being a gamer, kind of going, because I mean, yeah, we are going to, because we're going to be talking about card games in the main part of the show, but we're talking about a allegedly non-collectible set. Although,
You're
yes,
right.
Yeah. But it is interesting again that, because Magic is still it seems still to be very much in, was it Friday night is Magic Night and all that sort of thing on a lot of local game stores. And Josh has never really kind of been that forward in saying exactly how much he's spending on cards. And, as I say, as a parent, I don't really want to know. As a gamer, I'm interested, just for a price comparison.
Well, I spent just under about £30 for an entirely new set of a new deck, completely new set, and it works great.
Right.
And Zach, he's one of my best friends who I've been playing with this for ages, spent £70 on 3 cards.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I looked at him when he did that, because obviously I've got that book from you as well. I was like, how much? I just looked at it like, oh, flip. I couldn't imagine doing that.
It is just that kind of collectible aspect, which I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it seems to be an incredibly. I know, this is definitely a case of pot calling kettle here, because obviously it's just a case of it depends what exactly you spend your money on. I'd much rather spend it on on something that's 3-dimensional as opposed to a card. However, considering what we're going to be talking about soon, again, that might be a case of yes. Moving on. Right. Okay. So other than collectible card games, are you actually doing any other and outside of you and me playing? Are you doing anything else miniatures wise? Because I know at one point you were into Hordes of the Thing, not Hordes of the Things, Hordes, and stuff.
Yeah.
Have you not done anything with that recently?
I honestly haven't touched my Hordes in ages. It's a bit disappointing, and I'm really disappointed in myself. But it's like, unfortunately, I haven't really. Well, new job. I haven't really had the time. Like Yu-Gi-Oh at the moment is about just the quickest thing I can do. To do like it. Admittedly, the whole thing about trading card games is that they're very simple to get out and play. So at the moment, with my current schedule of work, it's very easy to go to simply play, because all I have to do is call my mates, see if they want to play, then we can just go and play. Unfortunately, I haven't got the time to sit down and play and start painting models and stuff, which I haven't got the chance to do yet.
Yeah, and of course, I suppose it's that is the added advantage, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, it's like it's a deck, it's a deck box, maybe 2, and a playmat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a huge advantage.
Yeah, well, it is, yeah. A deck box, a playmat, and and a couple of dice.
Fine, cheap, ish.
Yeah,
it's very easy. I actually carry it around everywhere I go.
Cool.
It's just easy access. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and I'll just say that is a massive advantage. And actually, it is a case of you could almost sit down and play it anyway. Yeah.
Well, you can.
Yeah.
Just can't really do it outside to go blow your stuff away.
Oh yeah. Cool. Right. Well, Mr. Hobbs.
Yes. Right. First of all, I need to say a little hello to Dirk from the Grognard Files.
Hello, Dirk.
Who tweeted that we all sound so worried when we do this, that we should just embrace it. So, Dirk, for you, I'm embracing this confessional.
Oh, I did see that tweet. Yeah, it's just like, well, why did you sound so worried? It's like,
yeah. But because the great guru's not here, I'm going to love this one. So, I bought the Lord of the Rings strategy game army list book.
Oh, right, cool.
So that's all the army list for Lord of the Rings background.
So that's not included. That's not included in the box set for Battle of Planetall Fields, then.
No, they give you the army list for the figures that are in there.
Oh. Okay, so right. Okay, so if you want to use any other figures, you've got to buy a separate book.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the GW game, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the new GW game. which we'll probably chat about in a bit. But yes, so there you get the army book, which I mean it's big. There's a lot of armless in there, and it's very pretty. So I got that.
Mm-hmm.
He was a Black Reacher's turned up.
Oh wow! Okay, so all right, so there's mini speculation about oh my word, are we going to see it?
I've got it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's all on the shelf. Yeah, so that arrived.
So what's it look
yesterday.
like then? What's the because I saw a quick photo of the boxes. I mean, have you managed to open any of the boxes? What's the quality like? Is it as good as Heroes of Normandy?
I haven't opened the boxes yet.
You've not opened the box. You've done it again, haven't you, Hobbs?
I've done it again. Yeah. Well, the problem is with the hero system is when you open the box, there's a lot of cards in there, and then you have to start unpopping things. And I'm very anally retentive, and I'd have to start packing it all away into drawers, which I also got. It's a full day's work.
Yes,
to pack away all that stuff.
You did you did get the complete thing, didn't you? Including all the storage solution, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You shock me.
No, I don't.
No.
It's a carefully constructed plan of what you need to do, and then all of a sudden, just right, let's do it.
Yeah. I really want a day just to sit down and just enjoy the unpacking and going through all the cards and stuff. Don't want to rush these things. That's
right.
madness.
So it's just Ultramarines and Orcs, yeah?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Lots of them. There's lots and lots and lots of them.
Okay, so
and 2 reinforcement packs.
Okay, so it's 40k. Yes, it's 40k. 40k the flat miniatures game.
Yeah.
Yes. Cool. Okay.
No paint in it.
Well, no, quite. No, it has to be said. I was very tempted. I was very tempted at the time, but I don't know. Yeah. I'm still. Yes, I am still undecided on the whole Heroes of Normandy thing. I must admit. So I'm at this point in time, I'm staying out of that one.
Okay, it's probably wise. I also discovered a site called Bundle of Holding.
Oh dear, that doesn't sound Bundle of Holding. Oh dear, this is.
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah. Josh knows what I'm talking about. So Bundle of Holding it's like the Humble Bundle that we talked about last time. So it's one of those where you can buy bundles of PDFs, and a lot of the money goes to charity.
Oh, okay.
And stuff. And they had one for Tunnels and Trolls. So I bought that.
Another RPG system from your youth.
Yeah. So even though I do have the Tunnels and Trolls Deluxe edition.
Hang on, didn't you get that at the Expo?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and it's a lovely book. But this is like pretty much everything for Tunnels and Trolls. Loads of stuff.
Is it compatible with the new system?
Yeah, the deluxe book is actually in the new system. Well, to be honest with you, the Tunnels and Trolls sort of carries on its merry way, and everything's sort of back compatible.
Right. Okay.
And it's so there's lots of stuff in there. So I got that. They also have Pendragon on there.
Oh right, okay. And obviously in the light of in the light of the news about Greg Stafford. Yeah.
I'd like to say that, Neil, but I actually bought it before he died.
Oh, okay.
So it was about to finish when I bought the Tunnels and Trolls one, so I just nipped in quick and got Pendragon.
Right.
But that's it. That's all I bought.
Okay. So
yeah,
I would be remiss if I was just to ask a simple question. Have you kind of got any sort of schedule about when you're going to play all these new RPGs?
Sometime before I die.
Fair enough.
If so, can I have it as well so I can join in?
By your own.
Well,
you got a job now.
Yeah, get in there, buy your own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Admittedly, he did get in on the. He did get in on the One Ring Humble Bundle set. So we've got all the One Ring stuff. So that's definitely.
It's lovely as well on One Ring. Oh, it does look good.
Yeah. Yeah. So if ever we ever get round to doing that on Roll20, yes, please. I think there's at least 3 people based in Leicester that want to get involved in that. Hi,
Cool.
Dave.
That sounds good.
Cool. Okay. So
yeah,
is
that's
that
it, all done.
cool? Okay,
In my happy and positive manner.
Marvellous. So, has anything caught your eye? Anything you're kind of looking at, kind of going, oh, that looks nice?
Well, there is one temptation I have, but it kind of crosses into the confessional.
Right.
I've been very tempted by the 7TV Apocalypse Kickstarter.
Yes. So much so.
Tempted, I backed it, yeah.
Backed it. Yeah, it does. Yes, that is on my list. That does look excellent. I mean, we've been seeing the models crop up at various shows for the last few months. There's been more and more of them appearing. Every time, every time a new cookie dice trade stand turns up, there seems to be more dice, and especially when you got to Chilcon, all of a sudden you could see some of the stretch goal miniatures that they had done.
And especially like the little dog with the little scarf on his neck and the pilot's hat. That was lovely.
Yes, and but also all the new vehicles that they've done for it.
Yeah.
Because if you're not aware, like, so 7TV Apocalypse, it takes the second edition 7TV, they produce, it's got new cards in it, expanded rules, it's also got vehicle build and combat rules in, which aren't in the original edition. So it is a different game. It is a new game from the second edition box set. It is different. And a whole new set of casts as well. So that's running at the moment. It's running until 7th of November, I think it is.
So, yeah, 6th or 7th of November.
Yeah, something like that. £75 for a box set and 2 casts, and then there's a whole load of extras and add-ons. Yeah, I am very, very tempted. Ironically, considering it's got vehicles in it, I'm currently having to hold off until at least the end of this week on that one. Since my car's due for MOT. It's very much a case of it depends on the budget I have for miniatures this month, for the next month, is very much dependent on how badly my car fails its MOT.
Yeah. If
it passes with flying colours, then I'm sorted. However, if like a 7TV vehicle, I've then got to bolt various bits onto it in order to keep it on the road. Then maybe not so much. So we'll wait and see. But yes, that does look very nice indeed. Anything else?
Well, that's it.
Right. Another Kickstarter. Well, a couple of Kickstarters on give a shout out about. Tiny Terrain Miniatures are running their second Kickstarter for War in Chechnya. With some Craig, who's been on the show, and that got some very nice new minis for that again. So that's running, I think, to the end of the month. That's running to the end of October. So look out for that one. Other Kickstarters are inbound. I tweeted, I think I put a Facebook post up the other day saying, okay, there's about 5 Kickstarters I've got on my radar at the moment, and everybody kind of popped up and said, oh, don't forget this, and don't forget that, and don't forget this, and there's that one, and there's this one. October seems to be a very, very busy month for Kickstarters. I mean, obviously there's been things like there's the Fireforge fantasy stuff that they've been doing. Tim Prow's been doing, has got a Kickstarter. So I mean, if you're into Tim Prow as a sculptor, he's got some very nice stuff on. So, yeah, lovely, lots of stuff. How about you, Josh? Seen anything you're after recently?
I have seen a couple of things online that I was like, "Oh, these look quite fancy." Like, you might like this. You know how? Obviously, we're going to be talking about the electronic version of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There there's a new game coming out. It's an electronic version of Space Hulk.
Another one.
Another one.
Yes. Its own customizable levels and everything. I looked at it, I thought, oh, that I know someone who might like that.
Oh, is that coming out on Steam?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I saw that. I thought that was really quite fancy. I've been suggested by my friends to have a look at the Pathfinder series. I've been intrigued with that, so I'm thinking of having a look at that maybe.
Is that physically as like the books, or because there is a Steam version of Pathfinder that's just come out, isn't there?
Yeah, the books. So similar thing like D&D, just sitting around the table doing that. But obviously,
D&D, isn't it? It's very similar to D&D, isn't it?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to play it yet, so. But
I've heard really good things about it.
Yeah, and I've currently been looking for another board game to add to my collection that I have, which is only the one at the moment, which is was it Ninja All Stars? So, well, the collection that I have on me is Ninja All Stars. The one I am waiting to put on my shelf is Gotham Chronicles, which is waiting for that one to come through the door in April, and I'm just going to.
Is that still on schedule, by the way?
Should be. It started production a couple of weeks ago, or at least last week, I think it did. So the main production and everything. That was what was in the update email.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I've been looking for a new board game to have a look at. Obviously, Dad we had a bit of a chat on Friday, looking around the shop and everything. Yeah, I think I'm going to throw this one out to the Meeps out there. If you have any suggestions for board games that I might have to look at and have to try out and potentially buy, if you tweet me at JoshLS2, then I'll have a look at what you've got suggested. Is that all right?
Is there any kind of genre of game you're after, or any? Is there anything in particular that you're interested in?
Mainly fantasy. A bit of fantasy, maybe a bit of sci-fi. Honestly, not the biggest fan of historic board games and such. But yeah, I'm willing to try anything out, really.
Just go downstairs and nick some of your dad's. Fine.
Oh yeah, right. He'd let me do that.
Yeah, he won't notice.
Well, nah, I'm sure he would. He's turned up in my room one day. I've got a couple of board games. Like, they're mine.
It's happened before.
Yep.
Moving on. Okay, that's great. Well, so that's what we've been. That's what we've bought and got on our radar at the moment. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about what we've been up to in the hobby. Hi everyone, Neil here. I hope you enjoy this episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you are, I'm wondering, would you consider becoming a patron of the show? For as little as $1 a month, you can help support us in what we're doing with the show. For that, you can get access to a monthly question and answer show, and that will also allow you to ask questions. If you pledge more, you potentially get bonus podcasts. And you never know, you might even get invited to be on the show yourself. If you want to know more details, please follow the link to our Patreon page, which is on the front of the website. That's www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. Thanks a lot. And welcome back, and here we are. So it's time we caught up with what we've been doing in the hobby. So, Josh, what have you been up to?
In the hobby?
Yeah, have you been playing anything? Other than the main subject of the game, subject of the show, which we'll be coming back to. Anything else you've been doing?
Well, obviously, other than playing games with you, I've been trying to get some games in with a couple of my other friends outside. Other than that, I've not actually been able to because of my work schedule.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a bit depressing.
Yeah, that's correct.
yes,
Welcome to modern life.
yeah, indeed. Yes.
And if you think it's going to get better, it won't.
It kind of this show from that sort of things kind of fell on the wrong weekend. What we were hoping on doing is there was a new board game cafe opened in Leicester. Opened last weekend, called Quest. We were hoping to pop down there, but unfortunately, family commitments such as Mum's birthday and stuff got in the way of that one. So unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. But all being well, we will be able to pop down there in the next couple of weeks, and we'll let you know. But yes, other than that, it's Friday night gaming at Battlefield Hobbies, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, as per usual.
The result of which we will tell you about in the main part of the show because it kind of crosses over. Right. Okay, so that's quick from you. For me, similarly, pretty quickly on the hobby front. Played a couple of games at Gloomhaven. We have hit our first campaign split. As in, where the campaign splits down to different legs depending on which side you follow. Interesting developments. We've had a couple of guys level up to the point where actually all the monsters in the dungeon change level, which makes life a bit more difficult for those of us who haven't managed to level up yet. But yeah, still enjoying Gloomhaven. Other than that, not managed to get a lot of painting done. I'm in the middle of painting 3 mobs for Gangs of Rome, which I'm hoping to finish by the end of this week, simply because they need to get done by the end of the month. And they've been sat on my painting desk for 2 weeks now. And finally at the start of the week, I managed to get them undercoated using the trademarked Jeff Bond method. Hello, Jeff. Washing with black once you grey undercoated.
Neil, sorry, that's Steve Bond method.
Oh, sorry, wrong Bond.
Yes. Wrong Bond. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve. Sorry, Steve. Sorry, Jeff.
Sorry. Oh dear.
Yeah, don't get mixed up. They get very upset.
I will. Well, okay. So I'm now guaranteed to get shouted at the next time I'm in Cardiff.
Too right.
Which unfortunately is not going to be this weekend, but probably more of that in a second. Finally getting some painting done, so hopefully get them done by the end of the week, and doing a bit more sorting out, which somebody else has been doing sorting out, which we'll probably go on to in a minute. But yeah, had an interesting one, especially considering what's coming out next week. So if you've been following October at all, you'll know that Speed Freaks is coming out next week. I think it's next week, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
I saw a tweet at the start of the week, and I think Speed Freaks is due out next week. Anyway, sorting through the various rubbish on 2 or 3 bookshelves in the spare room today, and came across this box, this white box that has Citadel miniatures on the side of it. Kind of going,
yeah. Was it dusty?
No, it wasn't. It didn't get a chance to get dusty. It was buried under a pile of paper. So I moved all this paper and went, oh, what's this box? One of the old White Games Workshop mail order boxes. I went, what's in there? I thought, what's in there then? I had no idea. Open it up, and you'll never guess what's in there.
Mocha?
Strangely enough, the clue is what I was talking about. Yeah, there were 3 orc war buggies, metal ones, in their blisters, and several other Gorka Morka miniatures. I think there might even be a couple of war bikes in there. It's like I think how long that's been there.
Straight to eBay. You want to sell those because you buy a new freezer then.
I thought we said we weren't going to mention the freezer. Moving on. But yeah, so that's that. Yeah, so couple of board games. And got our first game of Gangs, first play of Gangs of Rome in with myself and Mr. Hickman.
Yes, lovely.
Yeah, it plays really well. It was really took a while to get into, and there's a couple of interesting misprints in the first edition of the rules. So I just had to dive in for the FAQ immediately. But yeah, it plays really well. It's very cinematic, very narrative. Yeah, had a hell of a time. So we're hoping to get a second one in this weekend before the Gangs of Rome. The Gangs of Rome Day in Derby at the end of the month. But yeah, really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that. Great little game system. Looking forward to playing some more of that.
Excellent.
That's me.
Cool. For me, well, I finally got a game in after all of the issues over the last few weeks. Managed to get a game in. So yesterday, finished work, drove over to Abergavenny, picked up Mark, and then we drove into the deepest recesses of the Forest of Dean.
Ooh.
Yes, it was dark and mysterious. And we went to see...
Deepest, darkest Gloucestershire.
Deepest, darkest, yes. England, some would say. And, yeah, we saw Matt. We went to Matt Towers, so Glenbrook Games, HQ, we went. And there was cake. And a very nice cake.
Excellent.
Yeah. And we played Middle-earth strategy battle game. The new one has just come out.
Oh, the new one? Oh, cool.
Yes. And it was great fun. It was really good fun. It's nice simple mechanics, nice little tweaks in there. Heroes are everything. I mean, we only played a little starter game. I mean, Matt turned around and went, "Oh, I found this bit of terrain up in the attic, which is the Forge World Amsol." Yeah,
as you do. Yeah,
as Matt does. Yeah. So we played with that, and great fun. So much that we enjoyed it so much that we're playing again tomorrow.
Oh wow!
We're going to meet up in Abergavenny, and we're going to do the attack on Weathertop. Because what we discovered was, I mean, the rules haven't changed dramatically. They've tightened up a lot of stuff, and all of the army lists have been tightened up and all of that. And they put a few little bits in there. But in all of the old books that came out ages ago, which are packed full of really good scenarios, they all work with the new system.
They're all still compatible.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Wow, that's cool. And let's face it, you may have the odd one or two Lord of the Rings miniatures.
I'm okay. I mean, yesterday we played with 25 figures aside.
What?
It was only small. Yes, it's only a small game.
Mate, you need to sell some of your miniatures.
No. No.
25 figures.
No.
You've obviously been massively overbuying.
No, you need more. I mean, this is only a small game we played. It was about 300 points each. So, I mean, we'll probably cover the game at some stage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Probably. But I really enjoyed it. And it actually felt like the films. It's very heroes of everything.
Yeah.
And they can do lots of, wonderful things. I mean, we only played with a couple of captains, which are like the lowest hero you can have. But it just felt right. It was great fun. Really infused over that.
Cool.
So, played that. So, I say we're going to play again tomorrow. I had a sort out on the weekend.
Yeah. We saw
my cupboard.
All this stuff appearing on your desk, out of your cupboard.
Yeah, my Tetris cupboard was. I call it the Tetris cupboard because I can't sneak any more in there. I got it all out, bundled it all up, and I thought I'm going to sort it. And I thought I had all these boxes. I thought, how can I just fit all of these boxes back in and make space? So I thought, I don't know, I'll take all of the figures out of blisters and packaging, put them into bags, and stack them into boxes that way. And I reduced the amount of space by half.
So is everything now in like Ziploc buggies?
Yeah. And all labelled.
Oh, they're all labelled?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, put a note on them, so I know where they are. Yeah. Threw out 3 great big bags of recycling. And there's a lot of stuff in there. And it's amazing when you take it out the blisters and you start stacking it up. The big boxes, they don't have to get heavy.
So are they all out in like really useful, in like just packed to the gills in really useful boxes?
No, just in cardboard boxes. I
okay.
had a load of cardboard boxes, big cardboard boxes from, various Kickstarters that have arrived. So they're all in those. But yeah, that was great. Yeah, so I've made loads of space, which I've immediately filled up with the Heroes of Blackreach, which has just turned up.
So obviously, as part of this, you've catalogued everything you've got, haven't you?
No. But I know what I've got.
Well, I just thought it would be the ideal opportunity for you to catalogue and present and present as evidence your the current state of your lead mounting.
No, that didn't. That would have slowed me down, Leo. I was on a mission.
Okay, fair enough.
It took me a day and a half. I'm being honest. With Mandy sat there most of the time going, "What's that?" I didn't know. You mind? What's in there? Don't look at that. What's this? I mean, it's bad enough. I was actually playing the last podcast whilst I was doing it, the last Meeples podcast, and she was sat there going, So you pay for these Kickstarters before you get them? Just turn it off. Just turn it off. No, I'm not listening. I just wouldn't let me get the computer to turn the thing off.
Oh, you broke the fundamental rule. Oh, dear me.
Yeah.
What rule is that?
Never tell your wife.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Okay. So obviously, the one thing you hope now is that she doesn't work out how to subscribe to it and listen to the back catalogue.
Yeah, as she said, she's not that sad.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah. The fact she's working from home now means that literally every day it's a case of, Mark, you got another parcel. What's that? I think it's just a bug. It's just a bug.
Never you mind, dear. Don't worry.
Yeah. Nothing to see here.
Oh, dear. Oh. Mr. Hobbs living in permanent hell now. Oh dear.
No, of course not. I'm happy as a man in the happy place.
Excellent stuff.
So other than that, the usual stuff's ongoing. Lots of painting, lots of basing, lots of putting things together.
Right. So all this space is obviously you're not making space for anything, and obviously you won't be going to Cardiff on Saturday, will you?
Oh yes, Cardiff on Saturday. By the time you hear this, Cardiff
last Saturday.
Yeah. Yes, it's the Firestorm Bring and Buy sale or tabletop sale.
Is it? Do they have two? Is it 2 a year they have?
Yeah. It's a great thing. So you basically you can go along as a punter beforehand. You can buy a table, so you get like a 6x4 table for I think it's a £5 for each 6x4 table. You got it for the day. Sell what you want. Firestorm being very clever, give anybody who's trading there an extra 5% discount to spend in their shop. Yeah, so it's that. And Aid Deacon, hello Aid. Aid is taking, he's going to be emptying a large proportion of his garage. Well, actually, no, an Aid. He's scraping the top surface off the vast hordes of stuff in his garage.
Hey mate, you and me have seen his garage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like scraping the toppermost layer.
Yeah. Often he's taking it down, so there's going to be bargains galore on Aid stall.
Yeah, also get yourself along, but unfortunately, we're not quite get published in time. I don't think.
No,
not unless I do a really quick editing job in the next 2 days.
Yeah. Plus the fact I've already sniped him on some stuff.
Oh, have you?
Well, he put these pictures up of look all this stuff I'm going to get rid of, and I looked at it. So I sent him a message going, "You want that? Can I buy that?" He went, "What? All of it?" Yeah. Give me a price. But more on that on the next show.
Yeah, I must admit, I did ask him about. I did ask him about one thing. which I haven't gone back to him yet, but I'm still very tempted. But yes. Okay. Right. One other thing, hobby-wise, I've been doing because another Kickstarter turned up. I believe
Another one.
Yeah, another Kickstarter turned up.
Oh yeah,
the other day. Well, you had yours. You had yours because you had the physical copy, didn't you? And I had I bought the electronic version.
Because you're cheap.
Of Miniature Wargames, the movie. You may remember a couple of years ago now, we had Joseph Piddleton on podcast talking about. At the time they were filming. That was in 2016. They were filming, and what they were hoping to get done. Anyway, okay, it's over a year late. Actually, from a Kickstarter point of view, the amount of delays you hear about films, it's not unusual to say the least. But we finally got a copy of it. So we thought we'd just kind of give a brief. We do a Kermit de Mayo impression, and give a brief overview of what we thought.
Well, it's an interesting film.
Yeah.
Let's describe it a bit, shall we?
Okay.
Okay. All right. So the film basically it's called Miniature Wargaming, the movie. It starts off. We got a brief introduction to Miniature Wargaming, what it is, scales of figures, and so forth. We get a very nice history lesson from Henry Hyde. Hello, Henry.
Hello, Henry.
Which is very good. I learned a few things off that. Throughout the film, you get lots of sort of mini interviews and talking heads from various luminaries of the hobby, and then we're introduced to our sort of 4 protagonists, I think we'll call them, and we follow their journey. So we got Adam and Matt, who are 2 gamers, and they're going to be taking part in a international tournament. So they get themselves ready for a bolt action tournament, which is held in Norway. So we sort of follow their journey of their preparation for that and all that. We then have Andy Bryant, who runs a small company called Small Terrain?
Yeah, it's called Small Terrain.
Small Terrain. Yeah, so Andy basically runs the company on his own. He runs out of his parents' shed, and his journey was to take his company to Salute and actually trade there for the first time. And then we had Chris Nichols from Macrocosm, and Chris was trying to get a board game produced, or a game in a box produced using his miniatures and the universe that he created for Macrocosm, and produce that ready for the UK Games Expo. And the film basically follows those 3 individual journeys throughout, and it cuts in and out of the various small interviews and so forth up until the end.
The first hour or so is a mix between introducing the protagonists for the documentary and introducing the subject. And then kind of the last 45 minutes it's the following the 3 timelines of the people they've been telling the story through. And then, especially because of the amount of time it's taken to produce the film, they've actually had a chance to go back and go, okay, so 18 months later, catch up, how are things? So, I think the film has a few issues. The first off is, I think it's actually struggling a little bit through its identity. Now, especially with the fact that you're producing a documentary that, and let's face it, as Miniature Wargames movie, the documentary, we as wargamers are not the target audience. Okay? Which is something you have to realise right from the start. So quite interestingly, most of the people who backed, I imagine, most of the people who backed the film are not actually the target audience. Please feel free to disagree with me, Mr. Hobbs.
No.
But I think, but it's okay. It's a documentary about miniature wargaming. Although that's what the title says. So from the outside looking in, documentary, you've got to have a way in. Okay, you've got to have a way into the subject. And so Joseph decided that the way they were going to do that was to tell these three stories. The tournament gamer, two different small traders. However, from that point, and especially with some of the things that happen during the course of filming and some of the stories that come out, the question becomes, so what's the film actually about? Is it about miniature wargaming? Is it about dealing with PTSD? Is it about the trials and tribulations of running of following your dream and running a small business in a niche market? Or is it about the hobby?
Yeah. I think we should probably explain a bit about the PTSD.
Yes, sure. And actually, therein lies an issue in itself, I think.
Yeah.
So, Andy, the guy from the Small Terrain, served in Kosovo with the British Peacekeeping Force in Kosovo. He was tanker, wasn't he? If I remember right.
Yeah.
Tank driver. Right, so he served in Kosovo. Now, those of us who are of a certain age know, you talk about Kosovo and the ethnic cleansing that happened during that, and the NATO forces caught in the middle of all that. You know what sort of a mess that was, and he talks openly and graphically about his experiences. And actually, I mean, there's documentary footage about it as well. And he talks about how that has affected his life. And obviously, he talks about how he has used his hobby as a way to, originally as a way to cope with his condition, and also, how that moves on. That is a really interesting, and I hate to use the word worthy, but you know what I mean. That is, that is a really good subject to cover. Really interesting, and Andy's story is heartrending and tragic at times. However, that, as a viewer, I began to wonder whether that moved the subject matter of the documentary away from from perhaps its original course. It almost like it took us. The film went off in that direction when telling Andy's story.
Yeah, it's just such a hard. I mean, Andy's story I found very touching.
Yeah, it's an incredibly moving story.
Yeah, and as somebody who suffers from depression and anxiety, it really affected me watching him putting his heart out there on the line. So I got a massive amount of respect for what Andy did, just standing there and saying that. But they just seem to gloss over it. It's just a case of, I hate to say it, but it's just like Joseph wanted to tell the story of him getting to salute. Nothing else seemed to matter. And that sounds blind, but we did have a lot of info that Andy gave about his history in Kosovo and the fact that he left the army. Well, that's fact. He left the army. He tried to commit suicide. He was put on antidepressants, and I think he was discharged, no longer required. He wasn't even given a medical discharge. So God knows what sort of support network he had, the poor guy. And he's trying to make his way running a small company in the biggest event of the year. The stress is going to get to him. Yeah. And it just seemed to be that wasn't sort of covered. He was just like, well, this has happened to Andy, but that's, now we're just going to cut to watch, Adam and Matthew packing the bag ready to go to their event. I feel I would have loved to have seen the whole documentary on Andy's story of what happened to him after he left the army. It was mentioned that he had some help from Help for Heroes, which was brilliant.
Combat stress.
So yeah. But I wanted more. I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to know he's fine now.
Yeah, a worthy story in and of itself. Similarly, I mean, I say you've got with Chris Nichols, his story about working in the business and then how he, as a small indie company in the UK games market, how he operates, how it works. That, I think, is something that everybody, although I was turning around and saying we might not be the target audience, I'm thinking as people in the hobby, people need to see that. People need to see what he does, how he operates. People need to see, like, for example, him visiting Rob Alderman. Hi, Rob. Down in Kenilworth, and go, okay, let's go into, let's go and have a look at all these castings, and and we're in Rob's garage, which is stacked high with all this stuff, and it's like, hang on, because here we see the lifeblood of the hobby and how they operate on a day-to-day business, and what life is like for the small independent operators. Some would argue the creative lifeblood of our hobby. And to be fair, basically how life more often than not is a bit crap.
Yeah.
Because they're making the decision of they're doing this because they want to do something they do, and be creative about it. That again is a really interesting aspect of the film, but it's just another part of the story. It's just another part of the story. Now, I think both Andy and Chris come out of the film really well. To be fair, everybody does. Everybody they feature does come out really well. However, ultimately, as a viewer, I found it unfulfilling. I found it at the point I started thinking, well, what is this film about? Is it about hobby? Is it about companies in wargaming? Because a lot of the whole kind of history is told through the history of companies and history and games coming out. I mean, there's a lovely little section where you've got Alan and Michael Perry teaching Peter Jackson how to sculpt. And this is while he's meant to be editing one of the Lord of the Rings films. And he basically turned around and said, I'm meant to be in the editing suite. I've taken a day off to come down and learn how to sculpt miniatures. Which is great. It's just one of these little kind of like, it's almost like a throwaway film clip. And then you've got these things like, for example, there is a clip of the Perry's sculpting, both twins. And obviously, you've got a clip of Michael working. And he's, obviously, because of the fact he lost an arm. So, he's working with sculpting a miniature in the way he normally does with his left hand and what have you. And for those of us who know the story of what happened with Michael and what he had to do, that in itself is a story worth telling, and it's never even mentioned. And so there's bits and pieces in there. You kind of think, as somebody, and as a viewer, it's like you suddenly go, oh, hang on a minute, that guy hasn't got an arm, and yet there he is doing this. He's sculpting the Lord of the Rings figures or whatever. I just feel that ultimately, either it tried to do too much, or in trying to give an overview, it got lost somewhere along the line. And then, other bits of it looks very, very pretty. The cinematography is really nice. They've got some lovely setting, lovely shots, what have you. But, there's only so many times you can see an overhead view of Tewkesbury Cathedral. So it looks very pretty. Perhaps some of that should have ended up on the cutting room floor while they actually told more of the story. I don't know. Whilst not wishing to be overcritical, I think I found myself dissatisfied with the final product as a viewer. I'm glad I backed it, but as a viewer, I ultimately found it, asking the question, who's this aimed for? What's his audience?
Mm. I watched it with Mandy, and at the end she just turned around and went, he didn't know who his viewer was going to be, because she's not a war gamer, she got no real interest in gaming, and she didn't enjoy it. She actually described it, and I'm sorry about this, Joseph, if you're listening, she described it as self-indulgent. She said it was a beautifully made film. Cinematography was fantastic. Soundtrack was great. The editing was really good. It flowed really well, but there was no story. The stories were just mixed up and just weren't fleshed out. And I find that, I can't really argue with what she said. I did have one major issue with the film, and I don't know if I should mention it. But what the hell? Why not? Right, this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler. So if you haven't watched the film yet, then we do suggest that you do go and watch the film, because it is well worth watching. But if you don't want to know part of what happens, just go ahead for a couple of minutes until you come back and I'm not shouting. Right. There was a part in Chris Nichols' story. Now, Chris is trying to get his board game out. And like I said, he produced this game. He's using miniatures from his own ranges, from a universe that he's developed himself. So there's no IP infringement at all. He's planned it all out. And about 3/4 of the way through, he comes on and he says, "Oh yeah, I just had to postpone the game." And he had to postpone the game because he had a phone call from somebody in the industry who threatened him with legal action if he went ahead with producing the game, because they're producing one similar. Or they said that his was very similar to theirs. It was a friendly call.
Mm-hmm.
And we got this on video because the phone call was actually filmed. I think it was filmed by Chris's partner. So you can see him trying to describe what he's doing. And no, but because he hasn't got any money, because he's a one-man band, trying to make ends meet, he can't go against this other company. Now, any documentary maker worth his salt should have turned round, found out who that company was, driven over there and shoved a microphone into the face of the guy who made that phone call and go, justify why you've done that. Justify to our viewers why you've just destroyed the dreams of another manufacturer. You've done it because you can. It's bullying. And it really, really upset me. As a gamer, I want to know who that company is, because they're bullies. And he's just not on. I mean, people will probably turn around and go, "Oh yeah, we know who it is. It's going to be the biggest one out there." But I don't think the biggest firm out there tend to make nice phone calls, and they tend to protect their IP very, very strongly. But I've never heard them going up against somebody and saying, "Stop making a game because it's similar to one that we're making." So I don't know who it is, but I would love to know.
We have our suspicions, which we're not going to air.
No.
But we have,
because we don't want to be sued.
No, but at the same time, we have our suspicions, and actually, you can put two and two together. And interestingly, the upshot is, Chris actually mentions at the end of the documentary, if he'd have been allowed to produce what he intended to produce in the first place, it would have sold, and it would have sold a lot. And I have to say, I have to agree with him. And because I must admit, from the timeline it was involved, when I saw he was going to UK Games Expo, then I saw what he was producing. I mean, I found it interesting. I didn't realise it was designed by Roby Jenkins, a friend of the show. Hi, Roby. But I didn't realise that game ended up getting designed by Roby Jenkins. But anyway, at the time, I thought it's a strange choice to take as a game to launch at the Games Expo. Now we know why.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Joe. I know that you wanted to tell a story of them getting there, but that was a major. This is basically a larger company using its power to shut down a small company. You're doing a documentary. You should have followed that, but you didn't. You just went, "Oh well, we just following the." It was almost like the stories were secondary to the production of the film. And I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, because it is a beautiful looking film. You've done a brilliant job, Joseph, if you are listening. But the story is the thing that matters. It's a documentary. Know your audience and tell a story. Wherever that story takes you, tell it. But that being said, I think it's well worth watching.
Oh yeah, it's worth a look. It's definitely worth a look. So I don't think it's not going to be out on general release until next year, because it's got to do the festival circuit. That's it, film festival circuit. So it's not going to be coming out on general release until next year. But certainly you can get you will be able to get a hold of it on. I think there'll be a physical copy. It'll also be available for sale. I think it's on Vimeo. Digital will be on Vimeo. So really valiant effort. However, I think as we've already said, some issues. Anyway, enough of a film review show. That went on for a bit longer than we thought. some 5-minute film review that was. Oh well.
You still there, Josh? Now we've lost the number one son.
We've lost him. He's got fed up. He's got fed up and wandered off. Oh well, never mind.
He's probably in the kitchen. Yeah.
Right. Well, on that note, we'll bug out, and when we come back, we'll be on to our main review of the show.
Yes.
It's time to go into the rules. It's the Meeples and Miniatures in-depth review. We go deep. Really deep.
No, I mean really, really deep.
We're back with our feature of this show, which, as I say, we're talking about Lord of the Rings, but not the miniatures game. We are talking about the card game, which is something, I mean, we've been talking about the card game on and off for quite a while now, and we've threatened on a couple of occasions to finally get around to featuring it. So we thought we finally would.
I think this is the first time we've ever reviewed a card game.
It may well be, actually. As opposed to a tabletop game. So people will ask you, well, why are you reviewing a card game? Let's face it, part of it is the subject. It's because it's Lord of the Rings. Obviously massively popular subject matter, and so we thought we would take a look at the whole game, talk about the various aspects of it, because there are a lot of different things going on, but also, as I say, recently it was a Gen Con actually, wasn't it? They released the early access version of the online version of Lord of the Rings. So as a result, it's kind of almost like back in vogue. So we thought we would cover it while we're at it. Okay, so the Lord of the Rings, the card game, a living card game. I think it was the second in the series of living card games. Well, possibly no, the third in the series of living card games that Fantasy Flight produced. The first two being the first Arkham Horror card game before they released the new one, and then they did Warhammer Invasion, and then they released.
Oh, I love that game.
Oh, Warhammer Invasion.
Yeah, didn't we play that ages ago?
Yeah, we did.
Sorry,
yes.
Sorry, carry on.
No,
so I just remember, like, hang on, I've played that, haven't we?
Yeah. I played it. We had it. I've subsequently sold it.
No.
Sorry, mate. Well, only so many gaming hours, and we've got a lot to play with this. So the game was originally designed, came out in 2011. So crikey, it's 7 years old. 7 years old. Designed by Nate French, published by Fantasy Flight Games, and it is a living card game. So it's different from a collectible card game.
So, define what a living card game is, because a lot of people may not know. Josh, as you're our guest, how would you describe what a collectible card game is and the difference between that and a living card game?
I think it definitely would be in the marketing, but also the play style. Would be the difference between those two. Because obviously with the living card game, everything is usable. So everything from the start for the first set all the way out to the latest set is usable from the game. Although with the trading card games these days, they have to bring out ban lists every month. Because obviously with every new set of cards they bring out, they have to nerf some of the old stuff they brought out. Or maybe nerf some of the new stuff they brought out. So
okay.
That's the difference I can definitely tell between the two.
Okay, so collectible card games are blind purchase, generally, or you may know one or two cards you get in a deck. But other than that, primarily it's blind purchase, and so you will get X number of common, X number of uncommon, maybe a rare, maybe a ultra rare, whenever you buy a pack of cards. And they rely on people buying multiple expansion packs, multiple expansion decks in order to build your hand. Or failing that, you spend a small fortune on eBay buying particular cards for whatever deck you're building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas living card games, it's not blind purchase. You know exactly what is in every single deck that you purchase, because the contents do not change. So every time you buy, whether it's the way that Fantasy Flight do it, you've got a core box, okay? So that is your starter box, if you like, and that will have not only a base set of cards, but it will also have all the counters that you need. Well, basically everything else you will need to play the game. So all the other components that you will need to play the game is in the base set. Interestingly, what Fantasy Flight have done is that they've reprinted the Lord of the Rings card game base set and made it much smaller. The cards are still the same, but they basically brought it out in a smaller box. So they've reduced the size of some of the components and what have you.
Oh, they were tiny, weren't they?
Yeah. There's a thing called threat dials, and which threat is something that you have to track in the game, and they've reduced them by something like 2/3 size.
Yeah, they were midget. Because obviously, with these threat dials, there's something you usually tend to use about two hands to do. These ones you can just use it in one hand.
Yeah. So basically, I think they decided to save on packaging and reduce the size of the main core box. So anyway, you get the core box, then you get what they call deluxe expansions, which have generally, I think it's something like 270 cards in. And then you have scenario expansions, which is a single deck of cards, and they will contain a scenario and cards associated with that scenario.
So what you're saying is the core box is a game in a box.
Yes.
Everything you need, and then you can expand that. And with the deluxe expansions, that's giving you like another start to a new sort of story thread, shall we say? Yeah. And then from that, you buy scenario to expand that storyline.
That's exactly it. So, for example, the way the game is structured, the core box contains 3 scenarios. Then, so they have the deluxe scenarios, or what they call deluxe expansions, of which there are currently 7, and then there are what they call cycles. Now, each cycle is a set of 6 scenario decks. Okay? And each of those cycles is linked directly with one of the deluxe expansions. So, for example, if you buy the base game. You then have something called the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle, which is the very first cycle of 6 scenarios. All those scenarios use cards that are either in the scenario pack that you have bought, but also use cards from the base game. Okay, and that's especially when you start, you're building the scenario deck. So you use components from the base game plus components from each individual scenario pack. Then, when you go into the next set of the next deluxe expansion, which in this case happens to be Khazad-dûm, so you go into Moria. Khazad-dûm contains a new base set of more cards for your heroes, but it also has 3 new scenarios, a whole set of a whole set of cards that are used in those scenarios, and then there is the Dwarodelf cycle, which then uses cards from that deluxe expansion in addition to each of its each of the cards in the individual scenario decks in order to build the game that you are playing.
Okay, so this now we know what the boxes are. Let's look at what the components are and how these different decks, because you basically got a pile of cards. So the cards mean different things. So let's look at what do you as a player have in front of you when you start playing?
When you first start playing the game, you have a deck of 50 cards. That is your main deck that you draw from during the entire game. You also have 3 heroes in front of you. They can be a combination of different heroes, but you always start with 3. And what else you have? You also have the threat counter in front of you, so that is what you use to register and control your threat. So you sort of know how far away, how far through the game you are, and how you figure out that helps you figure out certain aspects of the game a little later. You have the encounter decks and all the quest cards that are put in the middle of the board, or right in front of you. So you have the quest cards, which is part of the is that the scenario cards?
The quest cards basically describe the scenario.
Yes. So, for example, the journey through Mirkwood is what I think was one of the first scenarios you're given in the core box, which is was it traveling through Mirkwood? Yeah. So you got a lot of spiders and stuff. So you have 3 cards which are part of the scenario. As you go through this scenario, it explains what's going on, and it will tell you what to do, if there are any special things you need to do to pass on to the next phase. And once you've completed all 3 phases, then you've won the game. Cool. Next to the quest cards, you have the encounter deck. That's where all of the bad stuff all the bad stuff comes from. So that's where all your enemies, all your treacheries, and all your locations come from. If you're playing with more than one player, then you would have the other person opposite you. Then they'd have their own deck and their own 3 heroes. Also on the board you have tokens. So you have different types of tokens. You have 3 kinds. You have the resource tokens, you have progress tokens, and then you have wound tokens. So resource tokens are what you put onto your heroes. Progress tokens are what you put onto locations and quests, and wounds are what you put onto enemies, allies, and heroes. The last thing that I need to say is first player coin, which is the little coin you have to distinguish who's going first and second and stuff like that.
So what we haven't said in this is that it's a cooperative game.
Yes, of course, yes.
So the players, and in the core box, you basically it's set up for 2 players, isn't it?
Yes.
So the 2 players are playing against the encounter deck, I suppose.
Yes, against the scenario.
Yeah, against the scenario. So you have these quests, and these quests will say, you need to get so many quest markers to progress to the next part of the scenario. So you're trying to collect these these location markers, by using the resources you've got available, and without dying.
Yes.
Yes. As I say, it's cooperative. However, it also plays solo, and it can be played by up to 4 players. It's probably best played with 2, but you can play it with up to 4 people. Right. So, Josh has described that we have cards for heroes, and also there's the encounter deck. When you have heroes, each of your heroes is unique. They have a unique name. So yes, you can play with the likes of Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Frodo, what have you. And they are unique characters. So you cannot both play with Aragorn, for example. You have to have unique characters. Now, the game is set up in such a way that there are a lot of different characters that are pulled out from various aspects of Tolkien's lore. So the way the player deck is set up is that players' decks are divided into 4 what they call spheres. Okay, so you have tactics, leadership, lore, and spirit. And the cards that you get are assigned to one of those 4 spheres. Heroes, when they spend resources, can usually only spend resources to play cards of the sphere that they are aligned to. So, for example, Gimli is a tactics hero. Therefore, when he spends resources, you can normally only play tactics cards by using Gimli's resources.
Right, so just to take a step back, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm in the role of being the dumb one who doesn't know how to play the rules. So when you put your player deck together, so you decide your heroes first.
Yes.
So you can have 3 heroes from the same sphere.
Yes.
Which means that when you then put your player deck together, you choose all of your player cards from that one sphere.
Yes.
Likewise, you can swap around and you can have heroes from multiple different spheres, which allows you then to build your deck from a wider net, shall we say.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets good, because even though you have these decks, you then draw cards into a hand, and you can only use those cards if you've got the resources available for each hero.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice and easy when you've got all the 3 heroes from the same sphere, because you know that whatever cards you pull out, you'll be able to use the resources as a whole to use them. But if you've got, say, one hero from one sphere and the other 2 from another sphere, and you really want to play an expensive card from the first sphere, you need to basically collect tokens from that one hero until you can afford it.
Yeah, and that's when the whole fun part of deck building comes into this game, because obviously you can have that's when the whole strategy of like, all right, how can I use this? How can I use that? Oh, how often will this turn up and whatnot? Because the very useful thing that I've only ever seen Lord of the Rings do is they do deck profiles, which is they're built very nicely so that like, say, for example, me and Dad have been playing the Hobbit Saga expansion, and we're currently going through the first half of the scenarios, and on the back you have a pre-made deck builds for 2 players, but they're built in such a way that one sphere isn't overtaxed by the other. So, for example, the one I like to use is tactics and lore. So I have Gimli, who is obviously a tactics hero, Tharlin, who is also a tactics hero, but I also have Ori, who is a lore hero. And when I say the deck is balanced because all of the lore cards only cost up to about 1 to 3 resources. So if I'm wanting to put, if I've got a card and I find it really useful, but I can't play it, I've got to wait until I have enough resources on Ori to then play that card.
Yeah.
And in that deck, there are a lot more tactics cards than lore cards. But there are also like special heroes, or there are other cards that you can use that can something called song cards, which you can add to decks and so like your own customized decks, which then you can equip to your heroes. That means they can then use resources for the other sphere that you've incorporated into your deck. Like Elrond, for example, he's a lore character, but he can spend resources for tactics and leadership. Yeah, but unfortunately, the only downside to that is that his threat is really high. So whenever you start a game with Elrond, you've got a really high threat. So it's great effect, but the downside is you're gonna start with a high threat, and you're gonna get hit. You're gonna get targeted by a lot more stuff, and it's also going to be a lot harder for you to stay in the game because of the way the threat works.
Things worth noting. Okay, so we're talking about spheres. The way spheres, each sphere operates in a slightly different way.
Mm.
Okay, so first off, let's just explain. There are three types of, other than the heroes, there are three types of player cards. There are allies, who are extra characters that can help you during your adventure. There are attachments, which are basically equipment and effects that you can that you usually attach to your heroes. You can attach them to some of your allies, but primarily you attach them to your heroes. And then there are event cards. Now, event cards, basically, they do what they say on the tin. They trigger a special event, and they can be played at certain times during the turn. So they're the three types of cards you have in your deck. Now, each of the spheres that we've talked about do well in a particular aspect of the game.
Mm.
So, leadership is very good at gaining extra resources and has a high portion of allies in their card decks. So you can bring along a lot of extra people to help you. Tactics is combat orientated. So tactics heroes and allies tend to be very hard hitting, or good in defense. So it's very combat orientated. Lore is all about getting extra cards into your hand and also managing your health. So you can heal people a lot using lore. Spirit is about managing events that come along. So for example, you can start managing some of the issues that are thrown at you by the game. When bad stuff happens, you can mitigate it with cards that you play from Spirit. And the also thing is it manages threat. Okay, so this thing that Josh has been talking about high threat, Spirit is a deck that has cards that allow you to manage that.
Mm.
Mm. So it's up to you then as a player to basically build your deck to try and counter all of these things, but obviously
yes,
you can't because you're never going to have enough cards.
Yeah.
No.
So this leads on to your next question, Mr. Hobbs.
Yes, which is so threat. We've heard a lot about it. So how does it work, and where do you start? You mentioned that L1 means you have a higher threat. So
yes. Okay, so part of the game when you start is when you choosing your heroes. When you choose your heroes, they differ in effects and other things, but with all the heroes, they all, in the top left corner of the cards, they all have a little value. And that's their threat value. So when you pick all of your heroes, you add all the numbers up together of all your heroes that you've got in the top left corner, and that is your starting threat. So the more powerful your heroes are, the least amount of time you have in the game to do stuff. because the way threat works, sort of like a timer, isn't it? So you only have a certain amount of time until your threat reaches 50, and then that player is knocked out of the game. It's quite important to balance your heroes out, so that if you have quite a powerful hero on one side, it's quite important to then try and level them out a bit, level your threat out a bit by having some not so powerful heroes in there.
Yeah, basically, also it means that the higher the threat you are, generally you have more health points. Most heroes tend to have either 4 or 5 health points. If you've got more health, your threat tends to be higher.
Yes.
So I'd say it's a way of weighting the better characters increase your threat level.
Cool.
I guess you could say, in a role-playing kind of view, the more threatening your characters are, the more targetable they are.
So the way it works is that as you go through the encounter deck, generally your threat increases by 1 at the end of every turn. So you are constantly moving towards that level of 50 where you lose the game. That is seen as, like basically whatever Sauron is doing or the forces of Sauron are doing, they win when each player's threat reaches 50 and they are knocked out of the game. So the game is constantly advancing every turn. In addition to that, we'll come on to the way the game mechanics work. And one of the things you're doing is something called questing, which is you're moving the adventure along. You're traveling to different places. So you have to quest. If that quest fails, your threat increases. So you either progress the adventure that you're doing, or your threat increases, which means you have less time. The clock keeps ticking. So either you're winning, or Sauron is winning.
Yeah.
The other way, there are cards that will then allow you to reduce your threat in your deck. For example, Gandalf turns up. Gandalf is he's a neutral card. He can be played by anyone. He has one of several special effects. One of which is reducing your threat. It effectively gives you extra time. There were also cards in the encounter deck which may increase your threat. There is a special word, because as in most card games, there are keywords, and one of the words on several cards is called doomed. Which, if you get a doomed card, you immediately have to increase your threat. So essentially, the threat is the timer in the game. The better your starting characters are, the less time you have to actually complete whatever adventure you're trying to do.
Cool. So, getting back to our starting place, we've got our player deck in front of us. We've worked out our threat level. We've got our heroes in front of us. We've turned over the first quest cards. So it's the opening card of the scenario. And it's going to tell us that we need to, for example, collect a certain number of
progress tokens.
Progress tokens, that's the word I was looking for. To be able to move on. So, we start off with a resource phase, which I'm looking at the term reference sheet here. It says each player adds 1 resource to each of their heroes' pool and draws 1 card. So you start off, you get a resource point for each one of your heroes, and you can draw 1 card from your deck into your hand.
Oh, yeah, we forgot to say that when you first start the game, you draw 5 cards.
That's correct, yep. So you start off with a small hand of cards, and there's no maximum, is there, with the hand size?
I don't believe there is.
No maximum to hand size. Actually, there isn't a maximum to a deck size. Although I mean they advise you playing with a deck of 50.
Yeah.
But there isn't actually a maximum. Or I think actually they mentioned somewhere 100, but they basically turn around and say usually they're expecting you to play with a deck of 50 cards.
Yeah. Okay, so we started off. So first turn, we've got a single quest card out. We've got our heroes. We've got a hand now of 6 cards, and we've got a couple of resources. Right. The next stage is planning phase. So, in this stage, the first player may play ally and attachment cards. So, what's that mean?
Okay, so this is the phase where you're actually starting to build your field up a bit. So you're starting to so, for example, you're starting to prepare for this journey you're about to go on. So you're planning what you're wanting to do. So when you're playing ally cards, you're effectively recruiting people to your side to then help you with this quest you're about to go on. With attachments, that you're equipping yourself with useful items, because certain attachments have special effects because of different things. So Dwarven Axe, obviously it's a Dwarven Axe, so you get +1 attack, but it has a little special effect in brackets on the card. It's like if it's equipped to a dwarf, it gets an extra instead of a +1 bonus, it gets a +2 bonus. So instead of giving it to one particular hero, you probably want to aim to give it to a dwarf.
Okay, so this is when you sort of play cards, and
Yes.
as you say, you get allies, so using resources to do that. Sure.
Yes.
Right, we then move on to the quest phase. Right.
Yeah, okay, so this is actually a key part of the game. Each of your characters, well, I haven't mentioned that, each of your characters has 3 stats on them. Well, 4 actually. It has health, it has attack, defense, and the other one is quest. Okay, quest is it's effectively your ability to help progress the adventure that you're on. Each of the scenario, as we mentioned, each of the scenario parts that you're progressing, that you're working through, has a target number on it. This is the number of progress tokens that you need to be able to place on that piece of the scenario in order to progress to the next part of the scenario. And usually, you have to complete 3 parts of the scenario in order to win that particular scenario. Okay?
Mm.
In questing, that is when you are attempting to put progress tokens onto that scenario card. So at that point, what you're doing is that you decide, right, I'm going to commit a certain number of characters to questing. However, unless you have a card that says otherwise, or an effect that says otherwise, each of your characters can only be used for one thing during a turn. They may, if you use them for questing, unless they have a special ability, you can't use them to attack or defend later in the turn. So you have to decide between the two of you, if you're playing a 2-player game, for example, right, okay, we need to work out who is trying to progress the scenario, and potentially who is hanging back, waiting to deal with any enemies we might encounter.
Mm.
Yeah. So, okay, and you do that by flipping the cards on its side.
Yeah, tapping the card, or no,
Yeah.
sorry, exhausting it.
Exhausting it because you can't tap the card, because tap the card is magic.
Yeah.
Trademark.
Sorry. Yes. Yes. Okay.
So you exhaust the card. You don't tap
You exhaust the card.
You exhaust the card.
I turn in 90 degrees.
Indeed.
Yes.
Right. Once you've done that, you then reveal 1 card per player from the encounter deck.
Yes.
Because up to now on our first turn, all we've got is the quest deck. And we say, okay, so we need to get 8, for example, progress tokens. So I'm going to turn over these 2. That's going to give me 4. That's 4 tokens straight onto that. But unfortunately, you then turn over the cards from the encounter deck.
Mm.
Indeed. And the encounter deck contains 3 different types of cards. There are enemies, there are locations, and there are treachery cards. Okay, so treachery cards are the equivalent of events in the player's deck. But the locations and the enemies both have a threat value on them. Okay, so what happens is that each location and enemy go into what they call the staging area in the middle of the table. You then count the total amount of threat on the enemy cards in the staging area and compare that to the total number of questing value you've got for your heroes. If the questing value is higher than the threat value, then you place the difference in progress tokens onto the scenario card.
Yay!
If, however, all good. If, however, the amount of treachery is higher than the amount of questing you have, each player increases their threat by the difference. Instead,
that's bad.
And obviously, if it's the same, nothing happens.
Okay, so we mentioned locations, which moves us on to the travel phase. What's the travel phase?
So, when locations are put into play from the encounter deck, they are put into the staging area, and they become an obstacle for you to get through. With the travel phase, it gives you the option to then travel to that location, and then explore that location. And once it's explored, you're able to move back onto the current quest you're on.
Right. So these travel cards stay there, don't they? Until you travel to them, and they normally require a certain number of progress tokens.
But why would you do that?
So locations have threat levels. Yeah, so the more unexplored places, the more threat that is put in towards the whole total of the questing phase. So when you explore these places, they may have certain effects on them. For example, in the Goblin Caves, when you explore the Goblin Caves, it's a very nasty card because it gives goblins +1 threat every time it's questing. But once you've explored that location, the negative effect that is for the other players goes away, so it gives us a bit more of a chance to get back into the game. Now we've seen this area, nothing's here or everything's fine. Then move back onto what we were doing.
Okay.
It's another way. I think it's the main way to get rid of get rid of locations, because obviously there's. The one way of getting rid of enemies is by killing them, but the one way to get rid of locations is by completing them with progress tokens.
So we've done a travel phase. So essentially, one location from your staging area, you can make live and try and travel to it.
Yes.
Which does slow you down from doing the quest. Very clever. But if you ignore it, your threat's going to go up because it's blocked. It means you need to quest more. Right. Okay. We come on to then the encounter phase. So we've turned over some cards. Some of those might be monsters. They're sat in the middle. Right.
Encounter phase. Right. Okay. So I was talking earlier about threat. This is the other time where threat comes into the game. When you have enemies placed into what they call the staging area, each enemy card has a threat number on it. Okay, this can be anything from 10 to, I think the highest one I've seen is about 45. But it's usually around about somewhere between 20 and 30, something like that. Right. That threat number relates directly to your threat as a player. Okay. If your threat is lower than the threat number on the monster, that monster is likely to ignore you. Unless you want to attack it, that monster can potentially ignore you. So, for example, if you have a troll, a hill troll, for example, which tends to have threats of around about 30, 35. If your threat is something like 28, and you can basically see this hill troll, it's sat as a threat for you as a party. But you don't have to fight it. You can ignore it for now, because you aren't powerful enough to draw its attention. So, on the encounter phase, you can either choose to attack a creature. So first off, both players can choose to attack one creature, and then it cycles through all the creatures in order in the staging area that have a threat equal to or lower the player's threats. and they will decide to engage either if in a 2-player game, either player 1 or player 2, and it will go backwards and forwards. So, for example, if you have, say, 3 goblins in the staging area, and both players have threats higher than the goblin threat, what will happen is that the first goblin will automatically engage player 1, the second goblin will automatically engage player 2, and the third goblin will automatically engage player 1. Mm-hmm. So that's how the encounter phase works. You can either choose which monsters you want to fight, but you only get to choose one, and then the rest of the monsters in the area will either ignore you completely, or will divvy up between them who they're attacking. So you have a bit of a choice about who you attack, but then the rest of the monsters basically charge in, unless they decide to ignore you.
Okay.
Why would you choose to encounter a monster? If a monster is in encounter with you, basically you're in combat with the monster, its threat does not count in the questing phase. Therefore, it's another way of getting rid of a monster by making sure it's engaged with you, even if you don't kill it.
So physically, you move the cards for these monsters from the staging area into your area.
Yes.
To show that you're
engaged with them. Yeah, you're in combat with them. Yes.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. So, combat phase. So, this is the situation. We have young Josh sat there with 3 heroes in front of him. Let's say one of them has been questing, so he's got 2 active heroes, and he's also got an ally of his Gondorian spearman. And he's just been attacked by 2 goblins. I'm not going to make it easy for you, Josh. Right. So we move on to combat phase. And essentially, the first thing that happens is you deal 1 shadow card to each enemy. What does that mean?
Okay, so cards in the encounter deck. You have the card descriptions or any card details in the little box underneath the image. On some cases, the cards are split in 2 by a black line with a skull in the middle. I believe it's a skull. Underneath that little border is something called a shadow effect. So when you're dealing shadow cards, you deal the top card from the encounter deck to the monster that's engaging you. During the turn when you're being attacked by this creature, you turn the shadow card over to see if there's a shadow effect to it. Most shadow effects are quite nasty. It can range from many different things.
Yeah. Okay. But at this stage, you don't know.
Yeah.
If there is it's face down. Right.
Yeah, it's face down, so it's being dealt to you, so that
Yes.
you know it's about to attack you.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of thing.
So then we go into defend, and it says here, first player resolves attacks made by enemies engaged with him. So.
Oh, yeah. So after those cards are placed down and everything's been sorted, you actually have an opportunity to then play event cards.
Mm-hmm.
After all the shadow cards have been placed. So with that, you may have some events to prevent monsters from attacking this turn, or you may have certain events that cause you to do something quite early and actually make your heroes attack before the monsters do. But yeah.
So these again are resources you've got in your hand that you basically play, and you can play them multiple times during the whole turn sequence.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's pretend we haven't got any of those. So you're being attacked. So defend. The first player resolves attacks made enemies against him. So we declare the attacking enemy.
Yes.
So you just choose one of the cards, one of the attackers.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes. You have one of the attackers. Then you would declare a defender.
Okay. How do you do that?
So this part of the game, you can choose whether to defend or undefend it. If you're wanting to defend, then you choose a hero or an ally that you have suggested. So, for example, I talked about Gondorian Spearman. I want Gondorian Spearman to defend this attack. So what I would do, I'd place Gondorian in front of the monster, and I would exhaust him. So that he's tapped. He's currently defending against this creature.
Yeah.
But in some cases, if I can't afford to defend, then I'll have to go undefended, which means that I would have to take all the damage from that monster onto one of my heroes. Unfortunately, because that's the one problem with being undefended, is that all the damage that you don't defend has to be placed on a hero.
Okay, so let's say we've exhausted our Condorian Spearman.
Mm-hmm.
Next phase then is to resolve the shadow effect. So it's at this point that we turn over that shadow card and see if there's a shadow effect there.
Yes.
Yeah, and if there is, it gets added to the bonus. Otherwise, you just trick away the...
otherwise you just put it into the discard pile.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting that some of the shadow effects have two different effects. So, for example, if an attack is defended, then effect A will take place. If an attack is undefended, then effect B will happen. B tends to be worse than A.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's always best to try and defend, really, isn't it? And then it says that we determine the combat damage. So, talk to us about that in a few words.
In a few words. The way you work out combat damage, you get the attack stat from the creature.
Mm-hmm.
Then you compare it with the defense stats of the defending character. So you compare the two. You take away the defense from the first attack, and then that leaves you the amount of damage that character is going to take from that attack.
Each card or each ally or each hero has a certain number of wounds that they can take before they die.
Yeah, before they die. Yes.
Okay, so that's our first attack. We've got another goblin coming down, and we basically do exactly the same. And it's a case. So at this point now, you've got two heroes which haven't been exhausted yet.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the choice of, do you defend with one of those heroes or not? And you do the same thing again.
Yes.
So let's say we defend with someone and he soaks up all the arm. He absorbs all the hits. He didn't take any wounds, but he's exhausted.
Yes.
Right.
Which then means you only have one hero left to attack with.
Which is actually the next phase of the combat phase, which is attack.
The fun bit.
And this is where you're basically doing the same, but back to the enemies that have just attacked you.
Yes.
So again, you declare the enemy that you're going to attack with what hero.
Mm-hmm.
You exhaust the attacker, which is interesting. So, and then you determine the combat damage.
Yes. There is one thing I quite like about the way combat works in this game, is that you can actually combine your attacks. So that, say, for example, there's a troll. Trolls have 3 to 4 defense. One hero is very unlikely you're going to get over that, which means that you can actually have multiple heroes work together to then make one big attack to then actually stop breaking through that enemy.
Right. So when you exhaust an attacker, what effect does that have?
When you exhaust the attacker, you're effectively declaring an attack against the creature you're fighting, and then so you're giving a set value. That's set value you're going to attack your monster with. If you're wanting to exhaust other characters to make that value higher, that is completely up to you.
Okay. So you can, like you say, you can use multiple attacks to do more damage against the. Yeah, okay. Yes. And obviously these attackers have all got health points, and what you're trying to do is to bash through their armor and put enough damage on them to hopefully get them off the board.
Yeah, get them off the board and out your face.
Yeah. The thing with exhausting is that characters can only attack once, unless they have a special ability. They can only attack once, so they can usually only attack one creature. That's
the combat phase. So we basically cycle then through all of your heroes. Anybody who hasn't been exhausted yet attacks with enemy. You're trying to get rid of the enemies, because once you get them out of your area, that means they're not going to attack you next turn, because otherwise they're going to stay there and keep attacking you.
Correct.
Yeah. Also, it means that you haven't got attackers in the staging zone, which means this could be easier for you for next turn for getting tokens onto the quest. But you're trying to balance all of this and keep your characters alive.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So the final phase is the refresh phase. which is basically you refresh your cards that you control. Mm-hmm. So all exhausted characters get turned, so they're no longer exhausted. You increase your threat by 1, and you give the first player token to the next player.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you rinse and recycle, and you keep doing that until
either you win the scenario or your threat gets to 50, in which case you tend to lose. All your heroes die.
Yes.
Yes. If any of your heroes or allies get to their maximum number of hit points, they are removed from the game. If it's heroes, it means that you're then gaining less resources for the following turn, so the game becomes progressively harder.
So would you say this is a game of resource management and deck building?
Yes. It's not so much so that you know, I need resources. I need that. Like the only time you really need resources is to pay for cards.
The more cards you got in your hand, the more things you can do with them.
Yeah. Like, having cards in your hand is useful, but if you haven't got the resources for them, then they're not very useful.
And you say that these event cards that you can play at any, throughout
Anytime,
the turn.
Yes.
They don't. They don't cost resources, do they?
Yes, they do.
Some do, some don't. So, some can cost 0, which so nothing. All you have to do is just say, okay, I'm playing this now, which costs 0, which means I can do it whenever. In some cases, you will need to pay resources to then play these events, which also which does mean you will have to manage your resources. So, would it be better to pay all of my resources to give me a bit of a buff, or would it be more sensible to hold on to them for a bit and see what happens later in the round?
Okay.
Now, when you say is it a game about resource management and deck building? It depends how you want to play the game. Right.
Definitely.
Let's talk a bit about... We've gone through all the nuts and bolts. Let's talk a bit about the different aspects of playing. So, I mean, the first thing to note is that the artwork on all the cards is all unique. It's been custom built. It's been custom done for the game, and it is gorgeous. Almost without exception. There are a couple of kind of not quite so nice, but the vast majority of the artwork on all the cards is gorgeous. It's really, really nice. Because of the way the game plays, one of the ways to play the game, and potentially the way the game is intended to be played, as you buy more cards, you get more event cards, more attachments, more allies available for your deck. Depending upon the scenario that you are playing, you can custom make your deck to match or try and match the sort of challenges you will face in the scenario that you are playing.
Yes.
The decks are designed so you can have certain synergies. So, for example, Josh, your favourite tactics deck at the moment?
My favourite tactics deck I made was Eagles. Everything to do with the Eagles. So what I did, I found I got all the useful cards I thought I'd need from the tactics deck. Tower Tactics Sphere to then get everything working, and then get lots of eagle allies, and get different event cards that can get eagles to my hand because the eagles are always useful. But
okay, so what you're saying is, when you start building up, when you start buying more scenarios, as you say, you're increasing the options that you've got to produce these decks, and you can start putting in some nice synergies and a nice narrative as well.
Yes, yeah, because this is my favorite part about this game, is that you can work relationships into if you're really into the role playing atmosphere of this game, then you can work relationships into your deck where certain things can happen. You can work different nice synergies into it and everything, and it's like why are they here and all that stuff. One of the things I like to use, so instead of having Gandalf in my deck, instead of using Gandalf, I use Radagast, which means that he's a little more eagle friendly. I'm a big deck builder, so playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic has given me lots of experience in working with different things. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a very big thing about working with synergy, so your deck can do multiple things to then get to victory. So that's what I like to kind of try and incorporate into Lord of the Rings.
Okay, so that's one approach, the deck building approach. Okay, which I suppose is the way the game is meant to be played. However, I have been asked, what are your different approaches to deck building and what do you do? Okay, I like the game because of the storytelling and the narrative aspect of it. However, I kind of also like a certain amount of chaos. Again, this is like, this is like a general thing in the games I play. It's, rather than planning for every eventuality, play the hand that you're given. So, if it's a case of, okay, right, I have a leadership deck, for example, rather than carefully choosing and building my deck, I may instead just deal myself 50 random leadership cards.
I get that.
And then just see what happens. I think it's otherwise known as the can't be asked approach. As in, life is too short to do all this deck building nonsense. Let's just get on and play the game.
That has been my favorite. That has been my favorite approach in the past from you, because then in some cases you've drawn cards like, why have I got this in here?
Indeed, yes. Now, the game has been out for 7 years, and in doing so, you have released a lot of different expansions. One way of playing it is to have every single card you have available into your deck, so you can choose it at any point. Another way of doing it would be to... So I said, you have like these deluxe expansions and then a cycle that follows it. So if you're playing a particular deluxe expansion and that cycle, you only use the cards from those expansions plus the cards from the base game.
Yeah.
And they're the only cards that you have available. Because then what happened? Because each expansion and cycle that follows it is themed. So, for example, I said, one is themed around Moria. There's another one that's themed around Gondor. There's another one that is themed around Harad, for example. Because they're all themed, they're all meant to fit together from from a story point of view. So, if you then whether you're deck building or whether you're doing a slightly more random selection, if you limit your pool of cards, it means that not only do you constantly have to amend the way you play the game, because you're having to deal with cards that do different things. So, it also means you're constantly having to adapt, but it also means that it's different, and you don't get stuck basically with, okay, one deck fits all. Actually, the game is designed in such a way, a deck that is good at one scenario isn't necessarily good at another one, because all the scenarios are different. They operate in different ways. And for one scenario, you might have to be really good at killing stuff. For another scenario, you might be really good at questing. So that's the way they balance everything, and that's the way they change the game.
Yeah.
And the great thing is, the bottom line is, it's up to you how you want to play it. If you're a big fan of the meta, and you're a big fan of deck building, then knock yourself out. I mean, at the moment, there's like there's got to be 5,000 cards in the game.
Yeah.
However, if you just want to get on and play the story, you can just get on and play the story.
Okay, so how long does a game normally last?
It depends how quick you die.
Okay.
It really varies. Like, I'm trying to think how our longest game was. I think it was a good hour and a half.
And the rest, mate. I mean, we played for 2.5 hours on one scenario, and we're so
Which one
close.
was that one? Was that Riddles?
Yeah.
Oh, it was Riddles. Okay.
Yeah. At the same time, we've had a game of Riddles last one turn.
Oh yeah.
The same scenario. We played it where we played the scenario for 2.5 hours, and then another time it lasted for one turn. Basically, because one of the failure conditions is that Bilbo gets killed.
Mhm.
And we actually managed to get Bilbo killed in a single turn. Oops.
Oh, okay. That's part of the game. So, I mean, you've sort of said what you like about it, because it is a very multifaceted game, isn't it? I mean, I've only scratched the surface with it. I've played it a few times. Really like it. But there is a lot of facets to it, and because of the size of it, there's a lot of places you can go with the game. Would you say?
Yeah.
I don't mean sort of physically.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So within the game, you've got not only the heroes from the Tolkien verse, but other related characters. Some that have been just created for the game, others that are taken out of associated fiction from Tolkien.
Mm.
We talked about the deluxe expansions. All those are designed. You can adventure in Middle-earth, doing things kind of surrounding what's going on with the War of the Ring.
Yeah.
So it's events that are happening around about the time of the War of the Ring, or just before, in various parts of Middle-earth. As I say, at the moment they've basically explored Mirkwood, Harad, Gondor, Rohan. We've got some stuff in Angmar. You've got some stuff around the Corsairs and the Grey Havens and all around there. The main game, if you like, has covered adventuring in Middle-earth and various things that might happen around the war, the timeline of the War of the Ring. However, they also realised that people actually want to play The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So they released a set of what they call saga expansions. And there are basically 2 expansions that cover each book. So there are 2 for The Hobbit, 2 for Fellowship of the Ring, 2 for Two Towers, and 2 for Return of the King. So that's 8 expansions, 3 scenarios in each expansion. And each scenario takes a major event from the book to play, and you're playing as characters who took part in that particular bit of story. Give or take. Yeah. I mean, I say we talk about but I mean, people have been going on about how the heck is Gimli in The Hobbit.
I didn't want to ask.
Yeah.
I glossed over that one.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy about it, Neil. I'll be honest.
Yeah, there are a couple of quirks, but
yeah,
generally, the vast majority of the characters that you play in The Hobbit are characters from The Hobbit, with a couple of exceptions on heroes, but it's only a couple. Right. So, in the first the first Hobbit expansion, which is Overhill and Underhill, for example, the 3 scenarios you're playing, the first one is
Trolls.
The Trolls.
Yeah.
Funny enough.
Bert, Will, and Bert, Will, and Tom.
Yeah. So the first scenario is the encounter with the Trolls. The second scenario is getting through the mountains whilst the stone giants are fighting, and going through the front gate and encountering the Goblin King. The third scenario is then, and this is the one it's one of the best scenarios we've played from Lord of the Rings so far, but it's actually in 2 parts. One part is all the dwarves trying to escape the goblins.
It's effectively riddles in the dark and out the frying pan, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and then it's riddles in the dark, out the frying pan, and then yes, it's into the fire at the end. So once you complete the two halves, they all join together. So then Bilbo joins the dwarves, and in order to complete the scenario, you have to defend yourselves against the wargs and goblins that are left out of the first two scenarios. And if you complete all that, you're finished. That third scenario is the one we're kind of struggling on a little bit at the moment.
It kills you so many ways.
Yeah. but yeah, I think we're 0-9 at the moment.
We did get to the third one. It's just the fact was that we got to the third card before we actually died. I thought, holy moly!
Yes, At the point where you've escaped the goblin caverns, but you're then engaged with eight goblin enemies.
Including Gollum as well.
Yeah, one Gollum. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the two different ways of playing the game. Okay, so you've got they introduced the Saga expansion, so you can play the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings the whole way through.
Excellent. So, is it worth discussing quickly the video game?
No.
It's kind of worth discussing. I've watched it played. Josh has played it a few times. How about you, Hobbsy?
I've played it a few times as well.
Okay, so is it the same? Is it the same game just ported over to a video aspect?
No.
Okay, what's different? What's different about it?
Pretty much completely the way it's played. Before, because obviously, Dad, you said you watched it, because obviously, me and you sat together and I played it in front of you. Just before we started, I showed you a little game video of Hearthstone.
Yes.
Didn't I?
What is Hearthstone?
Hearthstone is the trading card game online from Blizzard Entertainment, who are the people who do World of Warcraft and all that stuff.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, okay.
So, Hearthstone is their version of a trading card game online. So I showed Dad a bit of that, and then I played it, and pretty much it looked exactly the same because of the way everything moved and the way the board was set up. It was a complete different game because, you don't get that role-playing aspect that you do in the board game. Do you agree, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I approached it as I was quite interested. The thing that got me is they've sort of condensed the planning phase, the quest phase, and the encounter phase into one.
Yeah, I can't stand that. I hate it.
No, and I'm the same. It just wrecks the sort of subtle balance. I can see why they've done it, but for me, it sort of it loses some of the tactical nuances. I think. Yeah, it just loses. I mean, it looks beautiful. They've used the art, and for a sort of beta style game, which it is, because it's not out officially yet, it's still in beta. It works, which is amazing, because there's a lot of games I've played recently which are rubbish. They don't work, but this does, and lovely soundtrack. It looks beautiful. It's just that turn sequence. It's lost in a bit.
The thing that struck me about it, as you say, the way it's put together is really nice. It's got a really nice narrative. I mean, you got like spoken narrative,
spoken cutscenes,
and what have you between each phase of play. It looks like it might end up being cooperative, so you can have.
I believe it is cooperative. Yeah.
Yeah. However, the way it plays like a two-player adversarial game. So whereas at the moment one player is playing the heroes and the other player is playing the forces of Sauron, except it's an AI player. But that's what struck me about the game. It almost plays as if it's a PvP, as opposed to a cooperative against the game. And that whole phase of working out questing and working out who's going to do what, and that that kind of narrative story aspect seems to be missing in the fact of it becomes very much a kind of attack defense PvP. Whereas even if you've got cards that require you to your hero to do something that isn't physically hitting something, it feels like it is.
Yeah.
Because because the phase isn't differentiated. It's simply a case of it's almost like a different type of attack, if you like.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't, because the one thing I don't quite get about it is like it's obviously you do something, then Sauron does something, then you do something, then Sauron does something. It's like in that case, when it comes to that, it feels like the cards don't make sense. Like
exactly.
It's like okay, so as soon as you say, for example, as soon as you play a new ally, for example, the AI can just straight up attack that ally as soon as you played him and then kill him. And it sort of doesn't make sense, because then you've just wasted resources on an ally that could potentially be useful later in the game, but you can't use him already because you just attacked him and he's dead.
Yeah, it's lost the feel of the turn sequence, which is really important. So, but yeah, I mean, it only costs £6 at the moment, so it's worth having a look at, but it's not brilliant.
No. I wouldn't advise it, honestly.
Yeah, it's a different game. It's a different animal.
Yeah.
Potentially, it appeals to a different audience, which is again what I suppose probably what they're after. But the one thing to be aware of is the fact that the game's been out 7 years, and there are a huge number of expansions for it. Because I did fail to mention that what they've done as well is, just in case, they turn around and said, just in case, for especially for people who are deck builders, just in case you thought it was getting easy, they for each scenario they have also released what they call a nightmare deck. So basically, if you thought the scenario is too easy, try playing it with this deck instead, and add this deck into. So basically, the scenario becomes much harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of like like a £5 or £6 or something. And it just gives you a different set of encounter cards to play with the same scenario. It just makes life, because it breathes new life into scenarios you previously played. Okay, they're now too easy. Try it with this lot. There you go. Have another go. So the one thing is that there is a huge amount of stuff out there for the game. You can make it as little or big as you wish, especially with the way the game is divided. You can just say, okay, buy the base game and say, right, all I want to do is play the Lord of the Rings. Fine, in that case then, all you need are the Saga expansions, and it's all self-contained. Or you can turn around and say, okay, I just want to dip my toe in, and then, okay, so you can just buy one set of scenarios, which is like nine scenarios, and that will last, you a while. However, at the same time, we're now looking at a world that has probably somewhere over 100 different scenarios available, and potentially best part 6,000 cards in the entire system. If you want to collect the whole lot, yes, it's expensive, but it doesn't have to be. I think the base game is about £25, and then the deluxe expansions tend to be £22 to £25. The scenario packs tend to be about, depending if you shop around, £12 to £15 each, maybe slightly more expensive for some of them. You can get as much or as little out of it as you wish. We've been playing The Hobbit, just simply The Hobbit, for about 2 months, and haven't quite beaten it yet.
Well, we haven't even made it through the first half of the books. Like, admittedly, like the the trolls were hard enough as they were, weren't they?
Yes.
But we got through we got through the goblin caves, and we thought it was too easy, didn't we?
Well, no, that's
you did.
Yeah, but that's because we played it. Okay.
We played it on adventure mode.
Yes. Yeah. The game does have an easy mode, or like a story mode. This is official. They turn around and say, if you're more interested in playing the adventure and the story, as opposed to having the game as a deck building challenge, they have what they call easy mode. But we prefer calling it story mode because it sounds better.
Plus, it actually works with the story.
It does.
To be honest, it did sort of work out that way. That the Goblin King turns up for a round, and then Gimli just straight up murdered him and ran away. And
the fact that the only way we got out of the Goblin Caves was because Gandalf turned up.
Yeah,
both times. So as you play cards, you can build a narrative as you're playing cards and as you're playing different things. So that's what that is the great thing, really nice thing about the game.
Yeah, I mean, I do like it. I've only dipped my toe in. I've got the first cycle in the core game, and I got the first pack of The Hobbit. And that's enough for me. I mean, if anybody has never played a card game before, or a living card game before, it's worth just picking up the core game.
Yes, definitely.
It really is, because it gives you an insight into a whole another part of the hobby. I'm really glad I got it. Yeah, it's lovely to sit down and play, and you can play it solo. It's great.
Yeah, because if you're looking for that role, if you're looking for an RPG to play, it's an RPG in a box that has its own narrative, and you can make your own narrative due to the adventures that you end up taking. It's its own RPG in a box that you can do your own put your own thing into.
Yeah.
Cool. So that it is. Lord of the Rings, the card game. It's available, well, basically from your friendly local game store. What you tend to find is that different expansions cycle in and out of print. However, they are all reprinted on a regular basis. So it's very much a case of, you don't have to play them in order, except for, perhaps the Saga expansions. All the other expansions, you don't have to play them in order. You don't even have to play all the scenarios in order. Actually, in some ways, for the standard expansions, that is potentially the one thing I don't like. I don't like it as much as, for example, what they've done subsequently with Arkham Horror. But because each scenario in the standard game is standalone, so you don't have to play them in order. But and if you do, it follows through from a story point of view, but it doesn't play like a campaign. In the Saga expansions, it does, because you can, for example, you can find equipment and carry it through. That's the only downside I would say. But so as I say, you don't have to buy it in order. So just because you can't get hold of the Khazad-dûm expansion, for example, that doesn't mean to say, in that case, then I can't play. I can't buy anything else because I need Khazad-dûm before I get anything else. The only thing I would say is make sure is that if you're purchasing something, the cycles, i.e. the card decks, the 6 individual cycle card decks, are all matched with their own deluxe expansion. So make sure you buy those in sets. So it's a deluxe set and 6 associated expansions with it. They're all meant to be bought and played with as a full set of effectively 7 decks or 7 expansions. So make sure that if you're purchasing stuff on a ad hoc basis, you make sure that you're matching deluxe sets and cycles. Other than that, you can play it however you like, and there are some standalone scenarios available as well. So you can do things like the Attack on Lake Town by Smaug. They do an event at Gen Con each year for Lord of the Rings, and for each one they basically release a scenario deck for it. And so there are some standalone scenario decks that you can buy as well, which are just the game.
Yeah, it's all good stuff.
Yes. Cool. Okay, well, we've definitely done that to death.
Oh, yeah.
Right, okay, so, time to a quick break and then we'll wrap up. Well, here we are at the end of another show, and we made it to the end of the show without the aid of an eagle.
Yay!
Just about. All that we have left is to perhaps talk about what has the Anti-Luff, the rise of the Anti-Luff, what has the Anti-Luff been up to? Except, I believe he's getting wise to me.
What, he's not telling you?
He's starting to hide what he does. It's not fair.
Mr. Hickman.
He knows now.
So I think the only thing we can do at this point is get him on the show to explain himself.
Let's do that next turn. Next podcast.
Next turn.
Indeed, yes. So I think we shall have to summon the Anti-Luff before us to explain himself. And find out why he's no longer telling me even about all the Kickstarters he's backing. It's terrible.
I'll get it out of him. You bring him on. I'll get it out of him.
The other week it was like I turned up and went, "What's in that box? I've not seen that box before. Oh, I've had that ages." I'm thinking, I've heard that one before. I think I've said that one before.
I've said that many times.
Indeed. So, yes, yes, we will, next time round we will be talking, hopefully, all being well, to the Anti-Luff himself. And we'll be chatting about various different things surrounding gaming and getting into gaming and what have you. So, until next time, one thing as we leave. Something I've been meaning to say for a couple of shows, actually.
Ooh.
When I was at Chilcon, in Derby, I was chatting with Andy Meacham. Now, Andy has been a regular at UK game shows for about 18 months. He's been on the Mantic stand. Lovely chap, full of enthusiasm about gaming. I think I first met him as at UK Games Expo a couple of years ago, where we ended up drooling over the models for Dungeon Saga, especially the dragon and stuff like this. And he has been a bright light and really good guy to chat to at every show. Chock full of enthusiasm, and altogether top bloke. I found out at Chilcon that he's getting made redundant from Mantic. For whatever reason, they have decided that they no longer need an events manager. So Andy is getting either is or has been made redundant. Hopefully, he was going to get a job with GW, but if not, he was going back to Scotland. So I just wanted to say that on a personal note, Andy, thank you for the huge amount of enthusiasm that you brought to the hobby. It's always been a pleasure to chat. You're a top bloke, and I hope everything works out for you in the future, mate. Okay, so time to go. So first off, thank you to our guest presenter for this show, the cheeky samurai himself. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was nice to come back again and talk about one of my favourite games.
Cool. And thank you once again to my compatriot adventurer, the Welsh Wizard. Thank you, Mr. Hobbs. It's been lovely to have your company as always.
Thank you again, Neil. Thank you, Josh. It's been a good one. You look after yourself, mate.
Oh, hell yeah.
And maybe one day we'll meet up on Roll20.
Oh, I really hope so.
Yeah.
I really, really, really hope so.
That would be cool. That would be cool. Yeah. So, hope you've enjoyed the show, guys. Something a bit different again. And until next time, take care. Happy gaming. We'll chat to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media, and here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.